Hello, and welcome to Greet the Week. I am Mona Duncan, and today's topic is going to be thoughts on conflict and how to resolve those and to look at life maybe uh, a little differently because sometimes when there's a lot of conflict, there can be some difficulty. So I'm going to pull up the screen and share. And we'll talk about it. Thoughts on conflict resolution. So, um, thoughts. Okay, there they are. I have to click them in. Thoughts. Thoughts. Our thoughts, we're always thinking things, but are they pleasant or are they unpleasant? And sometimes we need to think about the unpleasant things so that things can be resolved. But our thoughts, is it something that we believe or is it something that we doubt? And does that have an effect on the thoughts that we think? And then also conflict. What is conflict? Well, it can be a battle of some kind, whether it's an argument or literally going to war. But then maybe on the other side, looking at it little differently as to not being so heavy as a battle or war would be. The conflict could be a struggle, a clash, or it could be something that's just a difference that we're just not quite accustomed to, that we're not familiar with, and it's different than, and we make it a bigger battle than it really is, or a bigger conflict. And then the resolution. What does that mean? Does it mean to resolve it? And can it be resolved? There may be some things that just has to be the way it is and leave it the way it is. And so, that resolution is beginning to look at what purpose was this and what can be the outcome of it? How can we work through it? Or how can we possibly overcome this conflict? So, this is a picture of the church that Garland and I go to. We have been members there for coming on up on 24 years. And in October the 8th of 2011, our church right over here is a little historical marker that marked it as being a part of the community for 150 years, which now in 23 would make it a little bit older than that. And the reason I'm bringing that up to as a part of this conflict resolution is the fact that in that 100 and however many years it is, 63 years, 163 years, there has been a lot of maintenance go on, but there is a lot of disrepair also. There's a lot of things that have happened. The congregation is older, and so there's not as many people there to readily put on a new roof or even to uh, help it whenever things break. So anyway, right now, the roof, there are 6 different buildings on the property itself, and all 6 of those buildings need new roofs. And there's a couple of companies that's coming in and looking at that and so forth. But on the church itself, the steeple kind of sways in the wind. It's not steady. As a matter of fact, about 6 years ago, someone made the comment to the trustees that someone needed to go up and re-bolt the steeple every 6 months because it so can be so destructive by the winds and by the sails of life that it gets off kilter and it doesn't stay. So that was my thinking on putting in the church with the steeple. So here's a few facts to think about. We are always living, breathing, thinking, and acting. And I see that I didn't put my thoughts to come through as I get ready to say them, but So be it. We are always living, breathing, thinking, and acting. And so, in the fact that we're doing those kind of things, it means that we are always living in the now. But we may not be conscious of the fact that we are living in the now. And they may not be conscious of the fact of those activities of breathing and living and thinking and acting and emoting. And the thing of it is that our thoughts reflect in the body as emotion. You see, our body, our brain wants to keep us alive. And so, no matter what the conflict may be, there is always an emotion there. And depends on how heavy that emotion is as to whether it is calming or whether it is disturbing. So, thoughts may not be conscious, but the emotions are aware. We may not be aware of what we're thinking. We may have, it just may be that monkey mind. It just may be all those settled things that we don't even, can't even really solve out. But our emotions are aware of that. And so therefore, and the brain is aware of that. And so therefore, those replayed negative thoughts lead to emotions being overwrought. And the lack of perspective and the maintenance identifies with our emotions. The lack of perspective and maintenance identifies with the emotions of, oh no, now we've really got a problem here. Whether it is fixing a steeple or whatever it may be, it has been neglected long enough that the problem is becoming more and more major. And those hostile thoughts often express themselves as anger and illness. So, the mind seeks healing. As we remove the emotional pain, the mind tries to heal our emotional pain through all this flurry of mental activities. Think this, think that, do this, do that. It may bring up to you some facts, some judgments, some reality, some perception, something to think about, something to rethink about, because the mind, it's always going, it's always searching, it's always looking. But sometimes things become so painful that the only way we can handle them is through denial. No, that didn't happen. No, I didn't mean that. No. We have to deny it because it's too painful. And that emotional pain is lessened through the reflections that bring resolve. As we can really begin to think about the fact of what will bring some resolve, what will begin to settle this, what can I do, what can I not do, what can I say, how can I be a part, how can, what. And so that resolving is that willingness to consider all sides, not just the way I see something, and to build it out of proportion as to what it really is. And then resolving is willingness to see both the pros and the cons of all parties, not only the pros and cons of me and how I contribute to, but also the pros and cons of others. And then to resolve to open the doorway to peace and healing. So it takes one to resolve something. This is the way I'm going to handle this. This is the way I'm going to interact with so and so. It takes one to resolve something. It takes two or more to reconcile. And reconciliation, then it can really set us free. The thing of it is the more that we, and always to realize the difference in the words that we use, that there is a difference in being thankful for something. I mean, I am thankful that steeple on our 160-something-year-old church has not blown off. But there's also a difference in being thankful for something and in expressing thanks, as in the person that's going up there now and rebolting all of those screws so that the steeple will stay in place and will be secure. So, freedom of reconciliation. Once we begin to reconcile with one another, we can begin civil with the offender, or we can be civil toward the offender. We cannot control anyone else. It's only us, and even that's hard enough to do. But as we begin to reconcile and be free, even if there are disparities there, we can have that freedom toward another. To be open to whatever your part in the conflict may have been. To set a pleasant atmosphere toward those who have been offended. Sometimes it's really difficult. Someone that has been offended, it's really difficult for them to come back in alignment, for them to be in a place of friendship again. That can be difficult. And so, as we reconcile things within ourselves and begin to do what is for the good of the whole, we can set a pleasant atmosphere that would make it more amenable and more joinable and more can still work together, even though we may not be in total agreement with each other. The freedom of reconciliation paves the way. It also strengthens us to live with unresolved issues. That this is something that there are issues that don't have a reconciliation to them. And how can we live with those unresolved issues? Well, it has to do with how we can find peace even in the midst of difficulties, and have a high result, have a humane thought toward the people, even though they, from our point of view, it may be askew. And then it's promoting overall physical and spiritual health. To give courage, it gives us courage to set free or to respect our boundaries, to and to build tenacity to embrace forgiveness of self and of others. That, sometimes we fuss at ourselves, and maybe there's a reason to, but it's always to realize I made a mistake. If that's the truth, if that's the conclusion you've come to now, I'm a part of the problem. Is to recognize the fact I'm a part of the problem, but I'm not the whole problem. I have made a mistake. That does not mean I am a mistake, and that those things can be rectified with mature thinking and living and interaction. And so, just a little more on free to be free. When we cease to draw our identification with pain, we're freed to be free. And it may be very, very painful. I think back on a couple of things that happened in my life that was extremely painful. And to continue to work with the situation and continue to be amenable and to remain friends with someone that was like stabbing you in the back. Anyway, when we cease to draw our identification from the pain, then we are freed to become free. And whenever we are free to find resolve, whether through action or through inaction, sometimes it's just keeping our mouth shut. Sometimes it's just, it's through inaction. But it's not through putting on airs of being in action. It's finding the freedom to experience love and joy and peace, even with something that can't be settled. Even if all the pieces, even if you have a 1,000-piece puzzle and there's 5 pieces gone, and you've searched the house and you've looked at this and you've done everything to look to find those extra 5 pieces and you can't find them, then it's time to, in the midst of those 5 different pieces here and there that are askew and it kind of ruins the puzzle, big deal. You can still experience love, joy, and peace in the midst of it. And so love, joy, and peace transcends those emotions all the way to the state of being, to the state of being as to who we are individually. So here is a poem. The original poem was by Tovar, and I have it somewhere, but I haven't been able to find it. And this is kind of akin to it, that was written by Ella Wheeler Wilcox. I think it's so powerful, and it reminds me, it's why I went back and put the steeple on there, that every 6 months it needs to be straightened up. One ship drives east, and one ship drives west, with the self same wind that blows. 'Tis the set of the sails and not the gales, which tells us the way to go. Like the winds of the sea and the waves of fate, as we voyage along through life, 'tis the set of a soul that determines its goal, and not the calm or the strife. And of course, another is always the prayer of serenity that is used in so many of the self-help groups and all kinds of addictions. The original one was written by Richard Nyberg. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to speak up, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, and accepting hardship as a pathway to peace. And realizing that as we become aware of who we are, that we can live a life that is in with peace and harmony. And thank you very much for being here. And many blessings to all.
I want the applause to be on the recording.